The life of a fisherman is a masterclass in resilience. By the time they become old-timers, lessons have been learned.
First thing he ever told me, he said, don't think you ever know more than this water, my boy. Because when you lose respect for that water, you're all through in this business. That stuck in my head, never left. Yeah, he was right. He was down Great Round Shoals, and they were fishing for cod. I wasn't there that time. And they were fishing for codfish. I was tiny then. And they were getting codfish left and right, left and right. But my father always watched the barometer. He told me, that's what you watch there. That's your weatherman. I said, okay. He looked at the barometer. He didn't like what he saw. So he told him, bring everything aboard. By the time he got to Highland Light, it was blowing 50 miles northeast already. And it was Hurricane Carol. And the Red Star was there with him and asked my father why he was leaving. My father said, the glass is dropping too fast for me. Until this day, they're still looking for the Red Star. She was never found.
I consider the old timers, like when I was first starting fishing and when I was a kid, they'd all be in the back of Land's End, down by the New York store. But those guys were all, they fished the rest of their lives, my grandfather, and they kept fishing, you know, and we had to get out. A lot of us had to get out. Some guys stayed with it. And regulations hurt a lot of people. I was talking with Joe Francis, he said it almost killed him. He almost had to sell his house and everything. Well, you're losing a way of life. But I mean, if you've got a family and you've got a house or something, you have to do whatever you can do to make it go. You know, you can't hang on, you know, and say, "Oh, I love fishing." I mean, when the time comes, you have to do what you can to survive.
You know, they had a different life that most of us wanted. Like most of the guys my age feel like we were born 20 years too late. And they had freedoms that we don't necessarily have. So for most of us coming up under, like, as we would refer to them as legends in the fishing industry, and a lot of them were pioneers of certain areas, and they had to figure a lot out. It's pretty humbling coming up behind them.
I had fished with a guy named Manuel Thomas who had the Joan and Tom, and I fished one summer with him on the Sea Fox. And it wasn't really that accurate, but he taught me how to read the Loran. And so I used to read it for him at night. And when I went on the Charlotte G, I was the only one that knew how to read that old-fashioned Loran. So I used to take the wheel at night, and every tow that I made, I wrote the numbers down. So I knew how to fish a big area of the backside.
And we're on top of the middle bank, way up, almost to the north side of the bank. And I was the holeman then. And Stevie Perry says to me, he says, Raymond, you better come up here and look at this. I said, why? He said, I don't know, it don't look right. So I come up on deck, and it looked like a steamer way off in the distance blowing its stacks. I said, no, it's a steamer, I guess, I don't know. So I went back down, they kept passing me fish. Then Stevie says to me, you better come look at this now. I said, why, what's up? You better come up here and look at this now. I come up, and there was a water spout headed right for us. I mean, I never seen anything like it. The sky turned black. We had hail slamming into the boat, and all of a sudden, I see Tony Shute trying to get that life ring off the side of the pilot house. I said, Tony, that ain't gonna do you no good. Let's go pick us up 500 feet and drop us. So I said, Dad, you know what that is? Yeah, it's a squall. He said, I got it on the radar. I said, squall? You ever see a squall come down, pick up water like that? I said, it's called a tornado. Ah. I said, ah. And just as like it was coming right to us, we were right back up. Gone. I said, boy, I don't know. You must be walking with the Lord. That's all I know.
My first experience with commercial fishing was with my father and Arthur Duarte on the fishing vessel Taurus. It was Martin Luther King break from school, and I was 10 years old.
My brother Chris went fishing at 12 years old. My father quit school at 10 and went working in a fish plant, and then he ended up going on a boat.
It was, especially then, that was definitely part of the culture. It was kind of like a normal succession where each kid would at least give it a try. Obviously I was young and not a physical force to be reckoned with or anything like that, but I just fell in love with it. There was I believe there was 4 men on deck, and it was just like the greatest thing I ever saw. It was a nice stretch of weather, and pretty much from that time on I went anytime that my mother would let me. It's a shame that we're much less of of a force than what they were. But when the blessing comes around, we think about a lot of those old timers who were like larger than life when we were growing up.
There's only, like I say, the guys, Kenny Silver, he's 96. He's probably the oldest. Manuel McCara and Kenny McCara just passed away this last year or two. And then you go down, Bobby Haddon, he's 80. Peter Cook, he's almost 80. Joe Francis, he's in his upper 70s. And then you go like to a whole generation, Todd Marta, Mark DeLumba, Sean Costa, he retired as a tanker captain, and he's lobstering with his son. He has 2 boats out of Provincetown. But, and Bo, Scott Roro, who's a scalloper, he's another scalloper. But these guys are already a lot younger, you know, they're in their 50s or 50.
Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of our old timers. So now we look at who the new old timer is. They don't want to be necessarily referred to as the old timer. There's a saying among the fishermen, when you don't see any old timers on the dock, you're it.
Yeah, it's like that. Joe Corrier, Brucey Corrier, and JB. I don't know if you just saw JB pass away. But those guys, that's like a whole different generation. Joe Corrier and I used to have a lot of good times. And yeah, they're all gone. I used to, when I was walking, we'd all at one time be going down the wharf together. And those guys, you could tell they just came from partying, you know. Everybody used to wear like white dungarees. That was a thing back in the 60s, these white dungarees. And so you can tell they were just getting home, and here they go, time to go fishing, you know. And I'll never forget, all they had was a loaf of bread with them, you know. They probably had food on the boat, but they went down, they jumped in the bunk, and the captain, Joe Corrier, was letting all the lines go. It was a lot of fun. Because I think of these guys, and with almost every one of these guys is a memory, you know, of things over the years.
In 1850, there were 51 wharves. Provincetown's only 3.5 miles long. In 1880, I referred to the Walker's map, which is a very commonly known map, and there were 44 wharves in Provincetown standing. 1898, the Portland gale hit, and it hit the wharves broadside. In 1900, I referred to the Eldridge's harbor chart, which has the wharfs. And in 1900, only 13 wharves were standing. 31 wharves were destroyed in the Portland gale in one day. It decimated the fishing industry in Provincetown, which was doing very well before that. And we never fully recovered from that. About 1920, it started transitioning where people were turning their boats into yachts, and they were taking tourists out and showing them around, or they'd take them out to watch them pull their lobster pots, you know what I mean? Because they had to supplement, the fish weren't here.
I can almost guarantee you that most people don't get what goes into harvesting wild-caught seafood. It's a lot of work. It's more work than most people are faced with in their lifetime. You know, you basically have a ride out, which our average travel and time to the grounds out of Provincetown is probably 2.5 hours. So you have a ride out, you maybe have some coffee and a mug up like breakfast, and then it's pretty much on until you come back to the dock. So it's an intense amount of work physically, and it takes a certain mental attitude, you know, referred to as like the grind in the fishery, to just be able to do it over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah, Albert Perry was fishing with my dad, and you got those doors that come up, they're 1,000 pounds or whatever, and he had his hands on the rail and the door let go, took 2 of his fingers right off. And my father went out there and looked in the glove and saw his finger. He said, he ain't gonna use these no more. He threw them overboard.
When I fished on the Charlotte G, my ears used to be black in the winter from the cold, and in the summer they would be black from the sun.
I mean, we fished in some weather. We're almost 30 days and no boat went out of Provincetown except for us.
Why would anybody work in those conditions?
Money. We made good money. I'll be able to tell you that. I mean, these other boats, I was fishing on the Plymouth Belle, made $150, right, for the week. I watched my father, he settled up with his crew, and they're making $600, $700, $800 a week. And I'm saying, oh boy, I can't wait for my turn. So when I started fishing with them, the first week, I think we may be home 2 days out of a week just to take fish out and go back out again. But we settled up over $800 a person. And I brought it home to my wife, who died of cancer at 45. And I brought it and I put it on the table and she says, where'd you get all that money? I said, where I get it? I worked for it. Why? She said, take that back to your father, tell him I don't want his charity. I said, charity? Charity hell. Look at that picture. You can see there's nothing given to you from that fella.
He was fair though, he was a good fisherman. Excellent, he was a good guy to fish with. I enjoyed my time with him. I was at a point where I had just gotten married and we were making, I think I made $5,000 the first year I was married. And so when I got on the Charlotte G, that's when I really started going ahead.
They made money, but it didn't come without risk.
I can remember on the Charlotte G, in the winter, no days off. I mean, we worked and we put some hard weather out, and but we had almost a year's pay before summer. A lot of them, it's all they knew. In the winter, it would get thin. We used to have some pretty hard winters, and you lost a lot of time. But where could you go and work and make between $400 and $600? You know, back in the '60s. You know, and even more. You know, I made $2,000 in 3 days sword fishing. We probably suffered more. We suffered a lot. I mean, some of it was induced by ourselves, but yeah, we suffered. There was some tough times, you know.
Roll wave, okay, is something like you never want to see in your life right out there. We were on the bank fishing, and Manel Thomas on the Joan and Tom says, Henry, we got a good 50 mile an hour breeze blowing out here at the head of the race. Yeah, that's a land breeze. That's going to go right by. Next thing I know, the water was just like a mirror. Then you got little white caps. Then the waves kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I said, finally he said, yeah, you better haul the gear in. We better get out of here. So we brought her aboard, and we were coming in. I was in the wheelhouse with him, and I could see it. I see this big, huge, white water didn't bother me, but when I saw green water, I didn't like it. It was completely green. Bow of the boat went right down, and this wave just rolled right over top of the whole boat. Everything on deck was awash, floating all over the place.
You definitely learn a lot about how hard life can be. You know, you can learn that if you make mistakes in life, it's costly. You learn a lot about people, believe it or not. Even though you're only in contact with small people, you get to see how those people really are, what they're all about. You know, if you have a crew for any type of period or longevity, you in some cases know more about that crew and everything they do daily or when they're home or whichever, more so than even your own family. So you learn that life isn't always fair and life can be harsh.
Yeah, the problem is that during the winter the price of the fish would go up, but you know, most of the time you never know what you were going to get for a price. A penny, 2 cents for whiting, you know. And they call it fish dollars, the boats, what they supported, you know. Yeah, and you could fish every day back then. Every day that you could get out, you could fish. So I think that's between Gloucester, Boston, and Provincetown, the biggest loss is the family boats and the family businesses, you know, that supported the boats. All the grocery stores and the fuel businesses and the ice, and it was huge. The families are gone. And I think that hurts the most.
There's several guys, including myself, that had moments where are we all in or do we want to try something else, like a land job? And most of those guys, myself included, like immediately are back on the water. It's like, it's just, once it's in you, you know.
What's hard is, and I hate to say this, but we're really the last generation that's going to be, there's very few of our children that are going to go fishing.
Whether it's in our own minds or not, the guys that operate these boats and fish on these boats are just a different cut of cloth. You know, it's an industry where like the strong survive, and most guys are exceptionally driven. You know, like the other men in this fleet, you're either driven or you get run over. And there's a great group of people to have, you know, share your livelihood with, and even guys from other ports that you don't come in acquaintance with all the time. It's like you share the ocean with these guys, and there's just something about it.
Well, I think people will help. They'll still help each other. I mean, but it's on such a small scale you don't even notice it. You know, before you'd see like 4 or 5, 6 guys on a boat mending a net to get a guy back in business. You know, and today there's just no people. Like Mike says, nobody lives here anymore.
And even though it's not what it was, it's still awesome. My good friend Mike Rigo, his father, who I know passed away, but he used to say, it's the job I love to hate the least. And if you can love your job, even if it's for that reason every day, then you got a pretty good job. I am proud to be a fisherman.